everyone. Let's start our today's current affairs for beginners session. Before starting our today's session, first we'll see answers for the questions from a previous video. The first question is, which of the following statements is or incorrect about the Prevention of Corruption Amendment Act of 2018? Here we have asked which of the following are incorrect. The first statement is, it considers both bribe giving and bribe taking as an offence. First, let us see what are these new amendments that were brought into this act. This Prevention of Corruption Amendment Act of 2018 was enacted to bring in changes to the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. First, let us see what are the new changes that were brought in with this amendment. According to the previous provisions, the minimum punishment for taking bribe is 6 months and that can be extended up to 3 years. Now, this has been changed. The minimum punishment was made 3 years and it can be extended up to 7 years along with fine. And the definition of this term known as undue advantage was expanded. It now includes even anything other than legal remuneration will be considered as a bribe. And even the gifts were criminalized. The gifts that were received with an undue advantage or with a wrong notion, with a wrong motive, will be considered as an act of corruption. And now, here even the bribery was criminalized. And here it is again of two types. One is bribe givers, they were criminalized, and also corporate bribery is also criminalized according to this new amendment. So for the first time, even giving the bribe is made a direct offense along with taking the bribe. And what about this corporate bribery? Here the superiors will be punished if their employee or an agent is bribed with the approval of the superior, especially for the organization's interests. Then it is known as corporate bribery and that is also criminalized. And what is this immediate forfeiture? According to this new law, a public servant who has committed this corrupt act, then immediately the provisions of Prevention of Money Laundering Act will be invoked on that public servant and the illegal property that was acquired by this public servant will be taken away. And one more thing is mandatory timely trial. The time to complete this investigation and also the trial within 2 years can now be extended up to 4 years. These are all the new changes that were brought in according to this Prevention of Corruption Amendment Act of 2018. So now let us see. It considers both bribe giving and taking as an offense. Yes, this is the first time here even bribe giving is also considered as a crime. The next statement is prior sanction is required to prosecute both the former and the serving public officials. Yes, even this statement is correct because according to this new amendment, this amendment covers the offences that are related to bribing a public servant by a commercial organization. Here we have seen about this corporate bribery and prior sanction is required to prosecute both the former as well as serving public officials. Even this is a provision under this new act. So as both the statements here are correct, but the question is which of the following are incorrect regarding this act? So the answer here is D, as both are correct, neither one nor two. The next question is, consider the following statements about Fugitive Economic Offenders Act of 2018. This Fugitive Economic Offenders Act of 2018, it defines the fugitive economic offender as an individual. It defines fugitive economic offender is an individual on whom the arrest warrant is issued. Arrest warrant was issued on this person because he committed an economic offense, and that economic offense is a scheduled economic offense, and if it involves the value of above 100 crore, more than 100 crores, and if this person leaves the country and refuses to return, that person is known as fugitive economic offender. I'll put it again. It defines the fugitive economic offender as an individual on whom the arrest warrant was issued for committing an economic offense whose value involved is 100 crores. And if the person had left the country and refuses to return, that person is known as a fugitive economic offender. Then it is the Financial Intelligence Unit who will file an application before the special courts. These special courts were designated under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. They were created under this act, and if this court satisfies with this application and the evidences that were submitted by this Financial Intelligence Unit, it will give 6-week time for an individual to be present directly or through his or her counsel. In the absence to do so, then that person will be named as a fugitive economic offender, and the provisions of the act will be applied on the individual. This is in case of an individual if he fails to present before the special court within the 6-week time by himself or through his counsel. Then what about if the individual is present before the courts? Then this will result in the termination or end of the charges under this Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, and he will be dealt with the economic or other offences under various relevant acts. So now let's see our statements. The Financial Intelligence Unit files an application about the accused in the special court. Yes, this statement is correct. The presence of the person before the special court will result in termination of the charges under this act. Yes, because this act is applicable to a person only if he leaves the country and refuses to return. But if he comes back or if he is present before the special court, then this law will not be valid. Then he will be charged for the economic offense he committed under various relevant laws. So even the second statement is correct. As both the statements here are correct, the answer here is C, both 1 and 2. Now let's start our today's session, and these are all the topics which we are going to cover in our today's video. Our first article is very serious matters in CBI report on Sharda case, says the Supreme Court. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. From this article, now let us see about this. What is this Ponzi scam and what is this Sharda scam about? First, let us see what is this Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud. It is an investment fraud where the clients are promised with large profits within a very short period of time without involving any risk. So the companies that are engaged in these Ponzi schemes, they mainly focus in attracting new clients to make new investments. So they will use this new investment or new income to pay the original or the old investors in the name of their returns for their investment, and it will be shown as a profit from a legitimate source. They mainly depend on the flow of new investments to provide the returns to these old investors. When this flow stops, when the new investment stops, the scheme will fall apart. because now they don't have money. They are running out of cash to pay the old investors. And now, before knowing about this Sharda scam, first let us see what is a chit fund. This chit fund means a transaction. This is a transaction in which a person will enter into an agreement with a set of people, with a specified number of persons, that everyone should invest a certain amount of money in periodic installments within a definite period. And here each subscriber, everybody who are all been investing over this time period in equal installments, so each such subscriber, whenever they get their turn, that person will be entitled to the amount. It can be by an auction or by tender or by a lot. Now let's try to understand this with an example. Let us assume there are 12 people. They came together and decided to contribute 5,000 rupees per month each. That means a total of 60,000 rupees will be collected per month from all these 12 people. And this amount will be auctioned among the 12 members after a minimum discount was set aside. Let us say that minimum discount is 5,000 rupees. That means the maximum amount any person can get from the total 60,000 rupees that is collected is 55,000 rupees. After this discount was set aside, now out of these 12 people, whoever wants this money, they will take up auction. And one person has bid the highest discount of 12,000 rupees to get this 60,000 rupees. So out of 60,000, 12,000, if we remove it, it is 48,000 rupees. So as the person has agreed on the discount of 12,000 rupees, he will get only 48,000 rupees. And he also should bear the organizer charges. There will be a person to organize this auction, and that organizer charges, let us say it is 5% of this 60,000, that means 3,000. So he has to pay this 3,000 and he will get 45,000. So what about this 12,000 rupees? This 12,000 rupees is the profit that was made by these members, these 12 members of the group. So this 12,000 rupees will be distributed equally among the 12 members. Like they will get 1,000 rupees each. So the money that is distributed is known as a dividend. So the person who got the money, he should keep contributing 5,000 rupees every month for the remaining 11 months. Then what about this? If two people had bid the highest amount, if there is another person who also had said 12k, then their names will be written on the chits of the paper and the chits will be drawn. This is like whose name ever is on the chit that is drawn, they will get the money. So this is how these chit funds work, and they are perfectly legal if they are registered under the Chit Funds Act of 1982. So now let us see about this Sharda scam case. Here we keep hearing about Sharda chit fund scam. Is this Sharda a chit fund? This Sharda group is a consortium of nearly 200 private companies with the chairman as Sudipto Sen. And this group is running a collective investment schemes, but this is being considered as a chit fund scheme. So what is this collective investment scheme? This is a scheme or an arrangement that is made or offered by a company under which the contributions that were made by the investors. For example, let us take a company. Here there were investors. They are contributing or they are investing in this company. Then their contributions were pooled and they will be utilized with a view to receive profits or income or property, and this is managed on behalf of the investors. Here investors are not managing their investments, and the company will manage these investments, as the investors will not have day-to-day control over the management and operations of this scheme. And the Sharda group, they have promised an allotment of a land or a flat in return for their investments. And these investors were also having an option to get their principal amount, what they invested, along with the interest rate at the maturity period. So we can say that from this, here a chit fund, we have seen before about the chit funds. Their auction is being done, and what is the return an individual will get is not declared before only. It is not declared in advance in case of chit funds, whereas in case of the Sharda group, they have already declared the returns. They'll get a land or a flat, and also their principal amount with interest. So this is not a concept of a chit fund, and this is a clear-cut concept of collective investment scheme. So this Sharda scam is all about, it has promised to give all these to its investors, like a flat, land and returns on the investments, but all these were not being happening because they are using this money that is brought in by the new investors, and they are paying to the old investors. Just now we have seen this concept is known as a Ponzi scheme concept, which is an economic investment fraud. The next article is Government Notifies New Rules for Drugs Clinical Trials. This article comes under GS Paper 2 under the topic of governance, and the subtopic is issues related to health. From the prelims point of view, what is important from this article is we should know what are these new drugs and clinical trial rules of 2019. The Union Health Minister has notified these drugs and clinical trials rules of 2019 in order to promote clinical research. In order to promote this clinical research in the country, these rules were notified. And these rules will ensure patient safety, because the trials that are being done on the patients here will be informed with their consent, and the ethics committee will monitor these trials and will decide on the amount of compensation in case of any adverse events. And are these new rules applicable to only specified drugs? No, they are applicable to all new drugs, investigational new drugs for human use, clinical trials and bioequivalence studies, and also for the ethics committees. And according to these new rules, in order to conduct a clinical trial for a new drug or an investigational new drug as part of research and manufacture in India, so in order to do that clinical trial, they have to file an application, and this application can be disposed of within 30 days according to the new rules. And if the drugs were developed outside India, and for those drugs, in order to do the clinical trials, they can get the approval within 90 days. So who will give them these approval? It is the Drug Controller General of India who will give this approval to conduct a clinical trial for these new drugs. And if there is no communication, once they have filed an application to the Drugs Controller General of India, but they didn't respond, then that application will be considered as approved. And according to these new rules, if any new drug is already approved and it is being marketed in any countries like European Union, US, UK, Australia and Japan, if the drug is already approved and being marketed in these countries, then there is no need of a local clinical trial for that drug again. So just note down what are all the new rules that were stipulated under this Drugs and Clinical Trials Rules of 2019. Our next article is India's carbon dioxide emissions up 5%. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment. So this entire article is about the International Energy Agency has released a report known as Global Energy and Carbon Dioxide Status Report. This was released by the International Energy Agency. And before looking into the findings of this report, first let us know about this International Energy Agency. This International Energy Agency was established in 1974 under the framework of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The mission of this International Atomic Agency is to work to ensure a reliable, affordable and clean energy for its 30 member countries along with others. And this organization is guided by 4 main areas, and those areas are energy, security, economic development, environmental awareness and engagement worldwide. This organization is headquartered in Paris of France. A candidate or a country, whoever wants to be a member of this country, that country should be a member of this OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But it doesn't mean that all the members of this OECD are members of International Energy Agency. Not all the members are members of this IEA. For example, Chile, Israel, Iceland, all these were members of OECD, but they are not the members of IEA. There are also some conditions to become a member of this International Energy Agency. In order to become a member, the country should demonstrate that it has the crude oil or product reserves, the crude oil reserves that will be sufficient for up to 90 days of previous year's net imports, for which the government should have immediate access, even though if they don't own them directly, and they should be used to address if there is any disruptions in the oil supply. So to put it simply, the country should show that it had a crude oil reserves that is sufficient for 90 days. And a demand restraint program to reduce national oil consumption by up to 10%. That member country should have a program, that is demand restraint program. What is this program? This is meant to reduce the national oil consumption by up to 10%. And there has to be a law and an organization to operate this coordinated emergency response measures on national basis. So on this country level, there needs to be a law and an organization to operate this emergency response measures, and there needs to be a law and measures to ensure that all the oil companies under its jurisdiction, they should report the information if the country wants. And one more thing is, the country should be capable enough in contributing to the International Atomic Energy Agency's collective action. That is, in achieving these, in focusing these 4 areas. And this organization also publishes some reports. Just now we have seen about this Global Energy and Carbon Dioxide Status Report, and it also publishes this World Energy Outlook, World Energy Statistics, World Energy Balances and Energy Technology Perspectives. These are all the reports that were published by this International Energy Agency. Now let's look into the findings of this Global Energy and Carbon Dioxide Status Report findings. According to this report, India has emitted 2,299 million tons of carbon dioxide in 2018 alone, which is 8% rise compared to 2017. And the India's emissions growth is higher even when compared to United States and China, because these are the two biggest emitters in the world. What is the reason for this? It is because of rise in coal consumption. This is the reason why India's emissions growth has been higher compared to US and China. And India's per capita emissions were about 40% of the global average, and they contributed to 7% to the global carbon dioxide burden. Here the United States is the largest emitter and it is responsible for 14% of this global carbon dioxide burden. So what is the issue now? India has committed that in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, India has promised to reduce its emissions intensity of its economy by 2030. And it is compared to 2005 levels, it will reduce it by 2030. And it has also committed that 40% of its energy will be from renewable sources, that too by 2030. So as part of this commitment, it made sure that it will install 100 gigawatts of solar power by 2022. But this report, according to this International Energy Agency report, India's energy intensity improvement, there is no energy intensity improvement like it promised in the UNFCCC. But it has got declined by 3% compared to last year, that is compared to 2017, even though the renewable energy installations were increased by 10.6%. This is all with respect to India. If we see the global scenario, the global energy consumption in 2018 has been increased nearly 2 times comparing to the average rate of growth since 2010. This is because the demand for all the fuels was increased, even though the solar and wind energy installations has seen a double-digit growth. The main cause for this is high electricity demand, which is responsible for nearly half of this growth in the energy needs. If we look at the United States, it had the largest increase in oil and gas demand comparing to the overall world. So the gas consumption in US has been increased by 10% compared to 2017, and this is the fastest increase since the beginning of this International Energy Agency records in 1971. So these are all some of the findings of this report, and these statistics can be used while writing the mains answers. The next article is Sharp Rise in H1N1 Cases. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance, and the subtopic here is issues related to health. From this article, now let us see about this H1N1 virus. What is this H1N1 virus? This is also known as swine flu, which is a respiratory disorder. This is a respiratory disorder, and according to the World Health Organization, this virus is a subtype of influenza A virus. This virus is commonly known as swine flu because this was detected in patients who were directly in contact with pigs. And according to the World Health Organization, the genetic analysis of the virus shows that it is originated from animal influenza viruses, and this was detected for the first time in North America, after which it rapidly spread all around the world. What are the causes of this virus? According to the World Health Organization, this virus will spread just like every other seasonal influenza viruses, and this will spread if there is an exposure of infected person. That means when an infected person coughs or sneezes, then he or she will leave behind the infected droplets. Exposure to these infected droplets can contaminate the hands and surfaces. What are the symptoms of these viruses? These are similar to the seasonal flu, and these symptoms include cough, fever, sore throat, headache, body aches. In extreme cases, the patient can also feel fatigue, feel fully tired. And if we know the severity of this issue, the swine flu, like every other regular flu, can develop into serious problems like pneumonia, lung infection, and also result in breathing problems. The next article is A Bridge to Nowhere. This article comes under GS Paper 2 under the topic of governance. From this article, now we are going to see about two things. One is, what is this Aadhaar payment bridge system, and we are also going to see about National Payments Corporation of India. And dear students, as Rambabu sir is back with his initiative Daily Editorial Enrichment Program, the analysis of these editorial articles will be done by Rambabu sir, and in this supplement video we will be discussing about any terms or topics or constitutional provisions, institutions that were mentioned in this article, so that it will help you to understand Rambabu sir's video. Now, first let us see what is this Aadhaar payment bridge system. This system was implemented by this National Payments Corporation of India, and this is used by the government departments as well as government agencies. What for? This is used in case of electronic transfers of benefits and subsidiaries under the direct benefit transfer scheme that is launched by the government of India. Under this direct benefit transfer scheme, any subsidy or any benefits that will be directly transferred into the account of the beneficiary. So, for these electronic transfers under this DBT, direct benefit transfer scheme, the government departments as well as agencies will use this Aadhaar payment bridge system. What is the mechanism used here? Here, the beneficiary will be identified through his Aadhaar number, and the National Payment Corporation of India will manage an Aadhaar mapper, where the Aadhaar number will be mapped to the specific bank account and money will flow to that connected bank account. So here this is the beneficiary and he has to be benefited with the government subsidy, and his Aadhaar number is mapped with his bank account. So the benefits will be transferred only into this bank account. That means instead of providing multiple account details like name, account number, IFS code, all these to receive these benefits or a bank transfer, only this Aadhaar number will facilitate this bank transfer. So this is all about this Aadhaar payment bridge system. So that the benefit here is, it is eliminating the delay. Here it is eliminating the delay, and also there is no need of multiple channels and paperwork is not involved here in the existing system. Here it will transfer the benefits and subsidies in a timely manner, and it is directly transferred into the Aadhaar enabled bank account. And in case of change in this bank account, the beneficiary is not required to convey the bank account details or change in their bank account details to the government department or agency. Only his Aadhaar number, as it is mapped even to the new bank, it will be directly mapped and he will receive benefits to that account. And the beneficiary need not open multiple bank accounts to receive benefits and subsidies of many social welfare schemes. Only thing the beneficiary needs to do is he should open a bank account and link that account with Aadhaar number in the bank account in order to receive the benefits and subsidies directly into their Aadhaar enabled account. So how this bank account is inducted into this Aadhaar payment bridge system? One thing is the account number should be linked with the customer's Aadhaar number, and that Aadhaar number must be connected to the National Payment Corporation of India's mapper, which is known as mapping, to the specified bank account. Now let's see about this National Payment Corporation of India. This National Payment Corporation of India is an umbrella organization for all the retail payment systems, for all the retail payment system in India, and it is this organization which will link all the ATMs in India. This organization was set up with the guidance and support of the Reserve Bank of India and Indian Banks Association. This National Payment Corporation of India was incorporated under Section 25 of Companies Act of 1956. Later it was changed to Section 8 of Companies Act of 2013 in order to operate for the benefit of all the member banks as well as their customers. Some of its developments are: it has developed the unified payment interface in order to move India into a cashless society with only digital transactions, and it has also successfully completed the development of a domestic card payment network called as RuPay in order to reduce the dependency on these international card schemes like Visa and Mastro. The next article is Maximum Gambit. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. Before knowing about this article, this editorial, it focuses mainly on the issue of universal basic income. What is this universal basic income? It is a form of social security where all the citizens will receive an unconditional sum of money. This was mainly considered for two reasons. As we are moving towards more technologically competent world, most of the workforce in various sectors like agriculture, they might become unemployed, and as a result, this income that will be granted in order to compensate the losses to meet their needs. Whereas in the developing world, this universal basic income, it was proposed in order to help reduce the overall inequality levels. This is in case of developing world, whereas this is in case of developed world. The Economic Survey of 2016-17 has an entire chapter dedicated to this universal basic income. This is a periodic. In periods, there will be an unconditional cash transfer to every citizen in the country. Here, the social or economic positions of the individual were not taken into consideration. And here, it is not an in-kind transfer, but it is a cash transfer. So here in this article, there is mention of a Nyuntam Aay Yojana, where the Congress party, which is campaigning for the upcoming Lok Sabha elections, has involved in its manifesto saying that it will transfer 6,000 rupees per month to the poor households. So in this article, this is being equated with the concept of this universal basic income. The next article is Let Finance Commission Function the Way It Does Now. These are the lines from former RBI Governor Y.V. Reddy. He said this in the backdrop of recent announcement by the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das in order to make the Finance Commission into a permanent structure. To grant permanent status to the Finance Commission is what said by the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das. So now let us see from the prelims point of view we should know about this Finance Commission. And this comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. Who appoints this Finance Commission? It is the President will appoint the Finance Commission once in every 5 years or even earlier if it is necessary. And this Finance Commission is a quasi-judicial body and it is a constitutional body which got its rights from Article 280 of the Indian Constitution. And the recommendations of this Finance Commission were not binding. Now the present Finance Commission is the 15th Finance Commission that was headed by N.K. Singh. Now let us see what is the composition of this Finance Commission. This commission has a chairman and 4 members. All these were appointed by the President and their term is also decided by the President and they are eligible for reappointment. This has to be noted down. They are eligible for reappointment. Then what about the qualifications of these members? As per the Constitution, it has authorized the Parliament to decide. Parliament was authorized by the Constitution to decide the qualification of these members. The Parliament specifies that a chairman should be a person of experience in public affairs, whereas the other members should be selected from a judge of High Court or one who is qualified to be appointed as a judge of High Court and a person with special knowledge on finance and accounts. One person has to be drawn from this area and a person with experience in financial matters and administration and a person with specialized knowledge of economics. So the other 4 members must be drawn from these 4 areas. Now let us see what are the functions of this Finance Commission. It is this Finance Commission which will decide the net proceeds of the taxes. How the net proceeds of the taxes should be distributed between the union and states. And based on what principles the grant in aid of the revenues of the state out of the Consolidated Fund of India should be given to the needy states. Based on what principle this grant in aid should be given out of Consolidated Fund of India to the needy states is recommended by the Finance Commission, and it will also look into any other matter that is specified to it by the President related to finance. Now let's see our today's practice questions. The first one is, which among the following organizations publishes Global Energy and Carbon Dioxide Status Report? And the next question is, which one of the following links all the ATMs in India? Try to answer these questions and post your answers in the comment box. In our tomorrow's video, we'll see the answers for these questions. Thank you.